Mr. There you go. Amy, you want to do roll call?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair Cry. Yes, we'll start with a roll call this morning. Board Member Audette.
Oh, stop.
Chair Cry.
Present.
Board Member Gallagher.
Here.
Board Member Harmon.
Yes.
Board Member Kellstrom.
Yes.
Board Member Resner.
Yes.
And Board Member Watkins.
And he's here too.
Wonderful. And Chair Cry can confirm that we have a quorum.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and stand for the pledge led by Supervisor Kellstrom.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go ahead and do staff introductions.
Thank you, Chair. One matter logistic just for everyone here. We have a updated agenda to reflect the item on 7.2. It incorrectly said that the meeting schedule was through December 2026 and should have said April 2027. So that is why you have a blue agenda in front of you, and there are copies here available. With that, good morning, Chair and Board of Directors. Thank you for being here with us today for today's April meeting. On the other side of the room, helping manage today's technology, Executive Assistant Amy Lindsay and Assistant Planner Laurent Beauregard. Also with us remotely is CFO Jessica Carlson. In the room today, we have to my left, John Ken, Legal Counsel. And then we have in the audience seats here, Accounting Clerk Kelly Irving, Senior Planners Jennifer Palm, Keith Williams, and Michael Cooker, and Associate Planner Moen Kalui. That wraps up introductions.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and move to item number 4, the workshop. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning even.
Wow. I got up at 3, so it's afternoon, but that's fine.
Let me get my slides going here.
Arm gets up at 2. Has dinner by 3 and back in bed by 5. I appreciate that. Thank you. Keeping up.
Yeah, I'm having an issue. Laurent, will you stand by to promote me? Yes. Apologize for the delay.
It's like an episode of the Muppets. The curtain goes up and Fozzie's doing. You got a joke, Sean? Anything?
A lot of jokes this
A
morning.
lot of jokes.
I don't have enough coffee yet.
John, how about you? You got anything?
My mind is racing. I got nothing.
You got nothing. It's okay.
Come on.
Appreciate the eye contact. Though looking by stars, I look and just go like this.
Can you promote me, Laurent?
Okay, there's
Promoted you.
tens of people watching on public access TV right now.
Yeah, now I should be able to share the right screen. Okay, thank you for your patience, Board of Directors. I'm here to give a presentation, a workshop on our Regional Transportation Plan, informally known as the RTP, and our Sustainable Community Strategies, informally known as the SCS, to explain what it is, why we do it, why it's important, etc. I wanted to start off with a basic reminder of the planning process. As shown on here, this is how planning generally works, no matter where you're doing it. If you're doing it in your personal life, in the business world, or in government, this is generally how we plan. We think about a strategic direction. Where do we want to be? We think about how are we going to get there? We allocate resources and we begin implementation. As we implement, we evaluate. How are we doing? Doing all right? Are we on the right track? And it's an ongoing cycle here. You can see how resource allocation and implementation go back and forth. There's a lot of cross communication there, and it's an ongoing kind of ideally a virtuous circle. So if you look at these 3 sectors or these 3 concepts here, and you look at our planning documents, this is how they fit in. So the Regional Transportation Plan and RTP SCS is our strategic vision. It it embodies where we want to be in the future. The transportation improvement programs, the TIPs, like the RTIP, the FTIP, those are the allocation of the resources of the funds. And that's described basically the resources we're going to use to get there. And then the overall work program, which I'm going to be talking to you about later today, is a yearly grant application that talks about what we're going to be doing in the year. And so every year we get a chance to revisit that. And that's the evaluation part. So the purpose of the RTP, and this is coming from our guidelines, is to encourage and promote the safe and efficient management, operation, and development of a regional intermodal transportation system that, when linked with appropriate land use, will serve the mobility needs of goods and people. That's essentially the purpose of the RTP. So it's our principal policy document that guides the investments in the region over the next 20 years. We update it every 4 to 5 years. It's an ongoing process. And it serves as a foundation for the development of the FTIP and the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. So it is a federal and state requirement, and it is considered to be one of our primary functions as an MPO. So because it is both a federal and state requirement, they have different kind of components in their respective laws that define this process. So as defined in federal law, an RTP should have the following components. It should identify policies, strategies, and projects for the future. It should determine project demand for transportation services over the next 20 years. It should focus on the systems level, including roadways, transit, non-motorized transportation, and intermodal connections. It should articulate or describe regional land use, development, housing, employment goals and plans. That way we know, how much of a system to build out and what kind. Should estimate the costs of these improvements and identify reasonably available financial resources to operate, maintain, and invest in these. And then we should determine ways to preserve existing roads and make efficient use of the existing system. And then above all, it has to also, well, not above all, but finally, has to be consistent with the statewide transportation plan, which in California is just called the California Transportation Plan, CTP. So the state required elements are 4. It needs to have a policy element, which describes the issues in the region, the transportation issues in the region, identifies and quantifies regional transportation needs, describes short-term and long-range transportation goals, and a pragmatic and objective policy statements. And these need to be consistent with the financial element. It also needs to have an action element that describes programs and actions necessary to implement the plan. So these would be like projects. The action element may describe all of the projects proposed for development during the 20-year lifespan, and it should consider congestion management activities carried out within the region. Those are wrong keyword. The financial element is that it has to summarize the cost of the plan implementation, and it has to, again, have a reasonable projection of available revenues. It should also contain recommendations for allocations of those funds, and it may recommend the development of new sources of revenue consistent with the prior elements. And then finally, the newest element is the sustainable community strategy. And this describes how we're going to meet our state mandated greenhouse gas reduction goals. You have to identify the general location, uses, and densities of buildings within the region. Have to consider our state housing goals. That would be RENA, right? The RENA allocations. And it has to consider all economic segments of the population over the 20-year horizon. We have to identify the network that's going to serve the transportation needs of the region, and consider information regarding resource areas and farmland, and include a forecasted development pattern for the region. Where are we going to grow? Which, once it's integrated with our transportation network, in theory, we should be able to get that 4% reduction. And so those are our current goals, 4% reduction against our 2005 per capita emissions. That was our 2020 goal, which we achieved. And it's also our 2035 goal. And this also allows us to comply with the Clean Air Act. So what are our current strategies in the SCS that we're using to make those reductions? First off, we're encouraging growth in strategic growth areas. We talked with our various partners, the cities, the county, and said, where do you anticipate growth? Where are you already set up for growth? Where can we do infill development, that sort of thing? We also call for improvements to public transportation, implementation of the GoShasta Active Transportation Plan. We're anticipating increased use of zero emission vehicles and increased use of bike, scooter, and car share. So we also have to define a vision statement for the region. And this is our current vision statement. I'm not going to read that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's rather wordy. Typically, vision statements are supposed to be much more concise and have other traits as well. However, we didn't want to revisit this vision statement unless we received board direction. So we just wanted to kind of bring this to your attention. It has what I would say is probably a lot of jargon. And I think we could do better. So that is our vision statement. And these are our goals in our most recently adopted plan. And so there's 8 of them. And we're going to revisit that. But these are generally describing, in theory, what we're trying to set out to do. So now it's come to the time where we have to do the update. And so this year, we are proposing to call it the Shasta 2050 RTP-SCS. And the reason for that is we think it describes better the purpose and the scope of the plan, because this is not a short range plan. This is a long range plan. 20 years, that puts us almost to 2050. This kind of hopefully tells people that we're supposed to be thinking further out on the horizon. And we came up with a clever little tag for it that we think summarizes the purpose of the work we do, and that's connecting people, places, and possibilities. So one of the things we've been hearing from our federal and state partners is an increased interest in performance-based planning. And basically, that's a data-driven approach to transportation decision-making. And in theory, it allows us to more efficiently allocate resources, maximize return on investments, and achieve our performance outcomes better. So that's one of the things that we're looking to incorporate in this next update more. So some of the performance measures used in performance-based planning, these are the federal measures. So they're divided in 3 major categories: safety, pavement and bridge performance management, and system performance. There's the various sub-measures underneath. So like number of fatalities, number of serious injuries, reliable person miles traveled on the interstate. And there's a couple more measures under PM3, but because our air quality meets standards, those don't apply to us yet. So we don't have to worry about those just yet. And the other thing we're hearing from our state and federal partners is a renewed emphasis on what's called the safe systems approach. And the principles of that, there's 6 of them. And they're simple, but sometimes it can be a little hard to fully integrate. And the first one is simply that death and serious injuries are unacceptable. Humans make mistakes. Humans are vulnerable. Responsibility is shared. Safety is proactive, and redundancy is critical. And I could elaborate a little bit more about that if you like. And then it also has objectives. And so the objectives are safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and post-crash care. So going back to our guidelines, they state that RTPs are developed to provide a clear vision of regional transportation goals, objectives, strategies. And I highlighted this sentence because of 2 things that I want to emphasize. To me, one of the key phrases in here is a clear vision. Should be easily understood by everybody what we're trying to do. And then the other thing is the fact that goals, objectives, and strategies are all listed individually. They're not the same thing. So generally, goals describe broad purpose or general outcomes. They're often not quantifiable, right? It's a description of where you want to be. Objectives describe how we're going to get there. So these are usually quantifiable. State law requires that objectives are linked to short range and long range goals or horizons. So they have to reflect the things above them, right? And each objective should be consistent within the needs identified in the RTP. And so this is just a way of enhancing performance-based planning, making sure everything is in alignment. And strategies are more specific versions of objectives. So for example, let's consider Apple. So Apple's vision is to make the best products on earth and leave the world better than we found it. Their objectives, one of them may be to develop the best phone on the planet by a particular year. Okay. So that's a subset, right? That's a product. Strategies to develop the iPhone may be develop multi-touch screens technology by a certain year, develop batteries capable of holding a certain amount of power by a certain year, and being able to develop their own chips. So that's kind of how it plays out. The federal goals here are defined here. So you've got federal goals are defined in legislation. And so they are safety, infrastructure condition, congestion reduction, system reliability, freight movement, environmental sustainability, and reduced project delivery delays. State goals from the California Transportation Plan are safety, climate, equity, accessibility, quality of life and public health, economy, environment, and infrastructure. So I created a matrix here to show you where they overlap. Now, they don't all have the same goals. There's like about 3 on each that don't line up, but there is quite a bit of overlap. They both have something in there about safety. They both have something in there about infrastructure condition. They both have something about the environment and economic vitality. So going back to these goals, our most recently adopted goals, the challenge is a lot of these are not actually goals at all. Some of these describe processes, but they don't really describe outputs. So I'm going to highlight the ones here. These are objectives. Optimize the use of existing interregional and regionally significant roadways. We wouldn't do that for no reason. We would do that for a reason. What's the reason behind doing that? Strengthen performance-based planning. That's a process. That's not an outcome. Okay. But there's still a lot of outcome-related language in these previously adopted goals. So what I did is I went through and I bolded these in red. And some of them even appear multiple times. You've got the words safely and safety. You've got efficiency and efficiently. And then there's some language in here that I've italicized that's a little unclear. One system network, what does that mean? That's not really clear, right? So ready. Here we have proposed revised goals. And so this is what we're proposing the revised goals of the 2050 RTP. And this reflects our tagline, right? So connecting, we're proposing a seamless and reliable multimodal network. People, that provides safe and efficient options for all. Places, connecting livable, healthy, and vibrant communities. And possibilities and beyond, while enhancing regional economic opportunity, prosperity, and sustainability. Now, remember, most of these are supposed to be broad general outcomes, and they're often not supposed to be quantifiable. So what I did here is I took some of those words that I previously bolded and showed you how I incorporated them. Right? Basically, I boiled it down to its essence and tried to make something that was a little more clear, that is more easily understood. So you can see reliable multimodal network appears previously, safe and efficient, livable, healthy. Vibrant replaces a different word that I thought was a little less clear. Communities, enhancing replaces another word, and regional economic prosperity and sustainability. And I also added opportunity. So Then with these new goals, or these, I should say, boiled down, edited goals, I folded in the old goals that were not really goals underneath them. So this one here used to be goal 8, and it's an objective now. It talks about how we're going to do this. We're going to improve reliability, safety, efficiency based on system data and alignment with regional performance targets. Then I proposed targets for each of these, okay? And so basically all I've done so far is revise previously adopted material, okay? I haven't added anything. And I've done that for the other 2 goals here too. So we've got greenhouse gas reduction, which is state goal. And then, I take that back. I did propose a new measure here for economy, and that is looking at the number of local match funds used to bring discretionary state dollars to the region. So there's room in there for other objectives, strategies, and measures. But what are they? Well, we don't know yet because that's what this planning process is for. So this is a part of the schedule for the development process. We've already begun updating the narrative portion of the planning document. This quarter, we're now looking at, after this meeting, we'll be initiating project list updates with our regional partners, the cities, the counties, federal agencies, the tribes, finding out what they're proposing for the next 20 years, what's already been done and needs to fall off, that sort of thing. And we're currently doing our workshop on RTP SCS. Next quarter, we anticipate having the list updates done, beginning work on the required environmental impact report, and drafting different scenario alternatives for public review and input. And during that quarter, we'll come back and ask you to approve SCS strategies for the next plan. We're not anticipating the need to update them at this point. Then final quarter, we're going to finalize our methodology with CARB. And then begin just the hard routine work ongoing through the next year. In Q2, we'll come back and hold a public hearing with our draft document, get your input on it. And then we'll have a public workshop where the public can weigh in on it as well. And a 55-day comment period. We'll incorporate all the feedback. And in Q4 2027, we'll take our final draft back to the board and ask you to please adopt it along with our new travel model. And so that is kind of a brief overview of the RTP and what our planning process is going to be like going. Are there any questions? Thank you. Michael, ever turns that on? It's a hot seat up here. No questions?
No, I was saying, I think you did that in one breath. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Okay.
Sean, this is a no vote item, correct? So you don't need, since we held the.
No, this is just an item just to see as in terms of as we get started here, like we said, it's about an 18 to 24-month process to go through. Because we only do this every few years, it's important for us to get that kind of started and let the public and everyone know, let you know where we're at, and a chance to have feedback. And it sounds like generally the board here it's good with the goals as we've revised them and presented them. There'll be opportunities, like I said, to relook at objectives, and actually we'll be doing some type of outreach to get community input. So there'll be an opportunity there at a later point where we come back and say, here's what we think the objectives and kind of those strategies are going to be. Here's what we received and heard from the community, from input, from our local agency partners as well, from our transit partners, and then also want to be able to get feedback from this board specifically, I think from a policy perspective to tie into those.
Hey, Greg, you were on the board in 22. Do you remember some of those conversations around those goals?
I remember them, but this is a good overview.
Yeah.
A lot of the goals are carry over from even prior cycles.
Yeah.
They haven't really changed.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
It's kind of just,
They haven't changed.
yeah.
And even now, they're still not changing. I would argue. I would say they're just be a little more legible.
We'll see. I mean, Sean and I are working on, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man. All right, moving on to 5. Aaron, did you have something?
I just was gonna say, I feel like every member of this board has said, can we do our best to hear from the public every time that we do a public workshop? sort of thing and to have them weigh in. And I feel like we're always dissatisfied with the,
Engagement.
engagement. So,
Everybody's paid to be here. There's no public. I mean,
it says in Q3, it says in Q3, they're gonna hold public outreach. So I just want to make sure that during that we're advertising to the community so that they can show up, or that we're going wherever it is that they will show up.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that is always this challenge. I mean, when you're talking about a long-term regional plan, sometimes it is hard for people to figure out how is this important and impact, right? Other than usually our regional partners that we work with on a regular basis. But there are some elements where, yes, we are required to go out to the public and try to host some meetings or some workshops and go out to various areas of the community to be able to provide an opportunity to kind of share. So our goal here is work those initial stages and have that existing information. Where are we at today? What are the goals and the strategies we've had in the past, and where do people want to see the emphasis within the regional transportation plan and how we invest in our transportation system? So we're working on that strategy with our consultants and everyone to figure out what works. And we'll even reach out with you folks as well to get the word out as well as we
I mean, it's the same thing every single time. We work on something in government for 18 months, then it gets voted through, and then the public all of a sudden gets engaged and said that something's being slipped by them. It's like, no, this has been public for 18 months. So a consultant doesn't need to tell us that. All right, moving on to 5. Presentations yet again. Awesome.
I'm Allie Sinclair. I'm a civil engineer with Caltrans, and I'm a project manager for Shasta County projects. So today we're going to go over some of projects that are nearing construction or in construction, ones that are going to impact the community. I'm not going over maintenance, smaller projects. I'm going to go over our major projects. So I don't have to sit down. I'm going to try to.
You don't care if I take a picture, do you?
Right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow. Sending it to my son.
Okay. So this is just an overview, a summary of our major projects that will be in construction. So right now we have a contractor on board for Pit 1 grade rock fence, and for the 2 at the bottom of 2026, the Antlers Bridge and Cottonwood Creek Bridge joint seal director's orders. The other few are going to go out later in the year. And then keep in mind that for the ones going out later in the year, like Potato Cut and Whiskey Creek, they will still be in construction in 2027 because we'll barely be getting a contractor on this fall. But I'm going to go into more detail. Actually, before I go through the list, I'm going to share this link that we have. This is a GIS platform, and it has all of our Caltrans District 2, actually North Region projects on it. And it's public information. You can first select your county up at the top. So I've selected Shasta County, and then I've selected all our major projects that I'm going to go over today. It's a useful tool. It shows location, general scope, when it's in construction, and how much it costs. And so this will be available for anyone who wants the link after today. So the first one I'm going to go over is Pit 1 rock drapery, which is over in eastern Shasta County, out east 299. So that's at the top of our 2026 list. We have a contractor on board, but we don't expect them to start until we're hoping May. This is a continued rockfall issue. We need to go in and remove some material and then put in a rock drapery system. And this is about 1.5 miles this side of Fall River Mills. And impacts to the community, we're expecting 15-minute delays throughout the summer, but we are allowing the contractor a 2-week window where delays can be up to 45 minutes. And the reason for that is there's about an 18-foot diameter rock that they need to safely remove when traffic gets down below. We don't know the dates of this window yet, but it will be broadcast out and it will be scheduled for the community. And we have a couple on the list as far as who to notify. We're planning on notifying local transit, local hospitals, but just stay tuned on that. The second
There's
one,
already a rock fence there, chain link fence. You're gonna make it a stronger fence, or is it still gonna be chain link?
we're adding.
That chain link fence is pretty old, Greg.
Yeah, adding more sections, yeah. I'm not the project manager on all of these, but we can help answer questions. Whiskey Creek Bridge emergency repair. It's called emergency repair because we have basically a type of steel weld that's expiring. So we needed to quickly get a project out to replace the steel girder superstructure on Whiskey Creek, which is the main long bridge going over Whiskey Town Lake on 299. We're utilizing the existing concrete piers and abutments, which were actually built twice as wide as the existing bridge. So for staging and impacts to the community, it's a good thing. We're going to be able to just build the first half of the new bridge, while traffic's still free flowing on the old. And then once that's complete, we'll move traffic over, build the second half, and we'll have a larger, wider bridge at the end. The reason why we want a wider bridge long-term is so that when we do go and do deck replacements or maintenance jobs, we're able to flip-flop traffic a lot easier than these old narrow bridges. That's going to construction this fall. We expect delays, some delays for tie-ins, things like that. And there will be some occurrences where we may have to close all 3 spans of the bridge to boat traffic beneath. However, the lake will still be accessible on both sides. Just certain days you won't be able to go underneath for safety reasons. Any questions?
That's a bicycle path too,
Yeah,
right?
on Whiskey Creek, yeah. Middle Creek Trail is going out this year. That's in Old Shasta. It's the Class 1 trail. Within the highway right of way, that's going to extend from Middle Creek Road to 2nd Street. And then we have Potato Cut Safety Improvement. That one is towards right on the other side of Montgomery Creek out to 99 East. There's the big truck climb. There's a big grade out there. We're going to add a truck climbing lane. We're going to smoothen out some of the curves and make a wider shoulders. And so it's a realignment project that will have some delays. I mean, it will be traffic control throughout that project. And that's going later this year, so it will be primarily in the 2027 summer. And then we have, so Antlers Bridge at the bottom, Antlers and Cottonwood Creek, we have joint seal replacements. These are director's orders projects, which means they're put out because of a certain finding or reason, and we want to get the project out more expeditiously. Antlers Bridge, there's not as much traffic up there, so there's going to be lane closures. There will be delays during the day, and these, I believe, will be done on weekends only. So they'll be
Antlers is weekdays.
weekdays. Okay, for Antlers. Then Cottonwood Creek is the Shasta-Tehama County line, I-5, and that's a more difficult task to take on because of the traffic volumes. So the contractor's planning on doing 4 weekends of work, and they'll do 1 lane each weekend, but they won't be able to open the lane up during the day. So we'll be squeezed down to 1 lane in one direction. So they'll do like northbound, for just an example, they'll do northbound number 1 lane 1 weekend, and then the next weekend they'll do northbound number 2 lane. These are going to be pretty big delays. We really need to get the word out there that if, like, at all costs, try to change your routes and avoid the area, because there could be up to 3-hour delays for these joint seal replacements.
That'd be 3 hours just because the volume of traffic cut down to 1 lane.
Yeah. Up to, yeah.
Yeah. So the parallel bridge into Cottonwood, can that be used?
We can't direct traffic from I-5 onto that road, but I'm sure a lot of locals will be taking.
Okay.
maps will tell you, get off
Yeah.
the freeway.
Yeah.
Hooker Creek Development, Cottonwood folks can go out that way.
That's a long way around.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it'll take,
Yeah.
it'll
4
it'll be
hours.
stacked in there, but the Cottonwood will figure it out.
Alternate route is 101.
Yeah.
Any questions on twenty
Highway
26?
3.
Hmm.
2027, we have Bloom Creek overlay and culverts. Those are actually two projects I just lumped together. Those are up north on I-5 near the Fiscal County border. And then the next on the list, we have Fix 5. So that will be adding some auxiliary lanes, a truck only lane
Truck only.
on I-5 through North Reading. And that's, we're anticipating to go out, I think, around January, maybe to a contractor in January of 27.
Yeah, we'll be allocating August and advertising this fall, so contractor on board by end of year.
So the
And-
work would start January 27.
There'd be some preliminary drainage work and stuff going on at first, but the major stuff usually happens, you know, when the weather doesn't rain.
Yeah. So just, I can do a quick read that expect to reduce speeds and temporary concrete barrier with shifted lanes. With reduced number of lanes at night, they'll be adding a third lane in the median as a truck only lane in each direction, construct 4 auxiliary lanes, widen 7 bridges, install advanced lane management system, which are those TV signs, basically overhead signs. And then installing some electric vehicle chargers for trucks and other vehicles at the Cottonwood scales as part of that project. The next on the list is Sweetbriar deck replacement. That's up on I-5 north of here. Expect very minimal delays. It's an overcrossing. It's more, it will affect some local traffic, but it shouldn't affect I-5. Fondale culverts, that's North Reading, from Fondale up to about Bridge Bay interchange. That's just replacing culverts. There should be full lane, there should be 2 lanes open in each direction during the day. So if there's a section where there's 3 lanes, we might have a lane closed during the day, but it's mostly going to be night work. Highway curve warning signs, that's a district-wide project, so it's not just limited to I-5 in Shasta County, but it will be updating those yellow curve warning signs, the mile per hour you see on those. Just an FYI, those will be changing, so all of the signs, maybe not your full driving patterns.
Hey, wait a minute, what?
Any questions? 2027 still continued. We also have shingle station paving and drainage. That's a pretty long project. I'll pull it up on the map. So Eastern Shasta County, Route 44. Shingle station paving and drainage, $25 million. I think it's intermittent. It's not the full stretch, but some overlays and drainage work. And then we also have Diddy Roost culverts, which is 299 East, and that'll just be some drainage improvements in between about Bella Vista and Montgomery Creek area, Round Mountain Ingot area. $2028, we have another one out 44, just this side of Shingletown. It's a little safety job, shoulder widening project and adding level strips. And then in 2029, we have less projects going out, 2029. However, downtown Reading Cap-In will be a very large project. It extends from Buenaventura 273, all the way through the downtown Pine Street, California couplet, up Miracle Mile, past 299, all the way until 273 merges with I-5. And that will.
One contract?
Hmm?
Is that one contract?
One contract. And it's called Downtown Ready Happen. It's doing a grind and overlay primarily, but it will be adding sidewalks to fill in the gaps, adding bike lanes to fill in gaps, striping bike buffers, replacing all the non-compliant ADA curb ramps, replacing 25 traffic signals, upgrading and repairing drainage systems to accommodate all of that. So it will be a big downtown job. And then Brighter 273 is a safety project in response to major accidents or major crashes along 273. And that goes from Anderson Creek Bridge to Buenaventura, and the primary scope is installing lighting.
Can I ask on those two, funding and planning, like we've done a lot of work planning on those. Are we waiting on funding? Are they funded? Are we?
They're programmed, so money is earmarked for them.
Okay.
But we don't allocate until we have the whole entire plan specs and estimate package finalized and ready, then the money actually gets allocated and it goes to bid, but it's all planned for.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then the last one on the list has been delayed to a future funding cycle. So this was a bike path through the I-5 right of way in Reading from basically behind Best Buy up to connecting to a City of Reading trail that's called Mill Valley Parkway in that area. So right now there's just a concept and an environmental document that's been completed on it, but it's going to be shelved for future funding. Questions?
Can you? I'm forgetting so Browning Street. Is it on the east side of the freeway connect? It's not following Hilltop up, it's going.
It would go under the Hilltop overcrossing parallel to I-5
Gotcha.
from
On the
Browning.
northbound side.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Let's move to public comment. Is anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none. Do we have any online?
We do not.
All right. Go ahead. Close public comment. Move on to the consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull anything that hasn't already been relayed to staff? At this time, there's nothing being pulled.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a first by Supervisor Caltrans, second by Ms. Resner. Any discussion on anything? Greg, Mike? Okay, good. All right, we'll take that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0. Amy?
Great,
Moving
thank you.
Absolutely. Moving on to,
Item 8.
yeah, I'm just looking at one thing here. All right, yeah. Moving on to 8. John, take it away.
Good morning again, directors. Just a couple of quick announcements. First, I want to announce that I am happy to say that no one here in office has recently completed his first year here at SRTA. He has completed his introductory period as of March 31st. I know I appreciate a lot of his technical expertise, his ability to come in with some of the technical projects that we have, including the travel demand model and updating that, the data dashboard project that we've been working on. And you'll see updates about those in future meetings. But after when you get a chance, just, thank him for being here, and he's sticking around, and I think we'll keep him around. So that's how we're looking at that.
That's always good news. That right there.
It is. Upcoming for activities, we have June 3rd is California's Legislative Day. They do this in conjunction with the Self-Help Counties Coalition. Myself and board member at that are looking forward to going to that meeting. hearing updates on different legislation. We don't know what that agenda looks like yet. We don't know who's exactly going to be there. But we look forward to hearing updates and providing input on various items. Usually there are 3, 4, 5 different state legislative folks that are there. Usually CalCog is able to bring in folks on items that are important to us or bills currently in the process. And that allows us then to have a conversation with them, share some updates and give them input. So we'll report back on that at the June meeting. Also, the CalSTA Sustainable Communities Task Force hasn't met since February. They transition a little bit for the next few months between now and August to have virtual participation with the different task force members with some one-on-one meetings on various topics related to transportation. Just because to be able to get all that input, it's hard to give everyone a fair chance to say stuff during even a 4-hour meeting, just because of the variety of participants across the board. And so with a number of topics, they want to get some honest input on some ideas and issues. We anticipate CalSTA staff is also going to give us a draft look at some of their potential policy and or other recommendations that can be part of the draft report. And so we'll get to provide input on that as well. So we anticipate we'll meet together as a group in August and we'll report back then about what that looks like for their report. And then last, yesterday, I participated in a Regions Rise Up workshop that was put on by California Forward, the Shasta Economic Development Corporation, North State Planning and Development Collective out of CSU Chico, and Redwood Region Rise out of Humboldt. Attendees included both nonprofit organizations as well as private sector folks, mostly in the fields of economic development. It also included representatives from State Assembly and Senate Districts 1, and then also public agency participants from cities, counties, and transportation. A lot of the focus of that event was identify how these various groups can collaborate and work together on economic development and also help support regional and state economies to be resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. There was a significant focus on rural needs and issues identified. We were actually uniquely with California Forward, we're one of only 3 locations that are doing meetings across the state. The other locations they were doing were in Long Beach and then somewhere in the San Joaquin Valley, Fresno, Bakersfield area. So they're only doing 3 of these. And so a lot of folks from across the North State came to provide input and share lessons learned. This was to tie to some of the other jobs first efforts that were done on the economic development side as state measures. And so they wanted to bring all these different folks together. Some of the things that California Forward was looking for input on from the meeting included how they could develop a playbook of policy recommendations for the next governor on how the state can support a regions up, their way of calling it a bottoms up approach to supporting regional economic models and things that are needed in regions. And so we focus a lot on the North State, rural areas, what are issues, what are concerns, how can the state help or get out of the way potentially on certain issues and make things better, but how can different folks in different industries as well collaborate and coordinate so that we know when we're doing certain economic development, what are those other areas that may have an impact? For example, in the North State here, Butte and Shasta County both have an MPO, right, with transportation. So there are some other things we have to factor in. So it's also us to share information about how to make sure projects are tied with the regional transportation plan for future investments in our roadway system and our infrastructure, but also to get feedback on, hey, what are some things that are maybe hindering that approach that we can get back to legislative folks or state agencies and say, hey, we need relief in these ways. We need some changes in some other efforts. So it's a really good discussion with different folks to kind of learn from each other in this. And it's hopeful that it will turn into an ongoing effort of collaboration over the years ahead. So we'll see how that develops. We're told the California Forward, which is a 501c3, it's not a state agency thing. They've been around for 20 plus years. To help be able to bring things together for local agencies, jurisdictions, the economic community, and ensure a good economy across the state. And so we'll see later this summer what that playbook might look like, as they call it. That ends my report for the board.
Perfect. Any questions for Sean? All right, hearing none, moving on to item 9.
Think we have any reports from board members?
Yeah, consider Vanessa, and she's not here. So. Hearing none, I'm going to go to 10, presentation on unmet transit needs.
Well, can you please promote me?
Yes, I don't see you as an attendee though.
In the through Zoom. Through the SRTA laptop.
Oh, it's already promoted. You can share.
Oh, thanks. Good afternoon, good morning, Chair, board members, and no members of the public, I guess. I'm here today to present on the unmet transit needs process. This is an annual process that we go through. Let's see. So why am I here before you today? Funding in California Transportation Development Act is the primary source of transit dollars that come into our region. It's similar to the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, at the federal level. So these are the state funds that come into our area. And under TDA, SRTA, this agency, may use the one portion of the funds, the local transportation funds, for non-transit purposes if it can be demonstrated that there are no unmet transit needs in the region that are reasonable to meet. The unmet transit needs process contains many things here. We do public outreach. There's a document, the draft before you today, and then we'll talk about preliminary assessment of unmet needs. To determine if there are unmet transit needs in the region that are reasonable to meet, we annually go through this process. If all LTF, local transportation funds, were spent on public transit, we would not be here before you today. The draft transit needs assessment that you have as a part of your packet has a description of our transit providers in the region. It looks at transit demand. It looks at the performance of the transit system. It describes the community outreach efforts and has suggestions of potential service improvements. Existing transit service in the region is shown here with our different communities displayed. You can see that any kind of brighter colors are really focused in the urban region, with a few areas going out to Bernie, Shingletown, Whiskeytown Lake, and down the I-5 corridor. When we look at transit demand, we're wondering who needs to use transit. And based on the Transportation Development Act, we look at three distinct populations. Those with disability, individuals that are 65 and over, and those that are below poverty level. I initially first looked at just comparing the Shasta County numbers to the state and to the United States. And in all three categories, we have higher percentages. So we have higher numbers of people with disabilities. We have higher percentages of people with that are 65 and older, and higher percentages of people below poverty level. So this is the who, and then here we are with the where. Where are these people? On the left side, we have the poverty shown. Middle is the 65 and over, and right is individuals with disabilities. Look at the pink or fuchsia colors. Those are the ones that are kind of higher in our region. And you can see that there's some outliers there, but if you look at the more subtle pink color on the left, you can see that the poverty is higher in the urban area than other areas. We do have those, we have communities that have high numbers of poverty, individuals with disabilities, and elderly people, but we do have quite a few of the people living in poverty in the urban region. Right now, I'd ask that the chair conduct a public hearing to see if there are any unmet transit needs from the public.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Amy, is all correspondence from any community, anybody for that matter, on file with yourself?
I show no one.
Okay, is there anybody in online?
No.
Maybe just to double check, there's nobody online either?
Nope.
Okay, nobody here, so we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We're going to bring it back for discussion.
Actually, got a few more things going.
All right.
So we do look at the performance of the system itself. So before you is the 3-year performance of RABA's system. I've got the fixed route system here in demand response. The one thing that's confusing about this is we are talking about operating in 26-27, starting July this year. So we're talking about that, but we're looking at 2 years back, basically. We're looking at 24-25. So just realize that the most recent audited information we have is from 24-25. And what I wanted to call attention to is that generally the system is the RABA's system. If you, many of you participate on the Reading Area Bus Authority, and you'll know that those discussions are talking about underperforming system. But I do want to call attention to the fact that we've had changes since 24-25 for that year and beyond, that we're seeing some improvements. So our operating cost per service hour is down. Our under demand response, we're doing actually quite a bit better. Our fare box ratio is down. The TDA subsidy per trip is down. Operating costs per passenger trip, operating costs per service hour are also down. So the demand response system, with our intended use of it and the way that we're moving the system is working, and we're hoping to see better improvements. Again, this is a look at almost 2 years back. So we are looking at the CTSA performance as well, because at that time that was an independent, not associated with the Reading Area Bus Authority, and it was under SRTA, under contract to do Me Health Connected Living. And this is information that you have seen before. You actually saw this in October of 2025. I just wanted to show that we do include this because we are looking at 24-25. The outreach that has happened thus far is in the Reading Area Bus Authority's October 2025 customer survey. They included a question of, do you have any unmet transit needs and what are they? We used that service so that we're not hitting up the public too often. So they had a customer survey where we said, Rabba, please include this question so that we're not going out again to that. The transit riders in our region, I think, are pretty familiar with this process because you actually get responses to this. We then have to look at whether they are actually a transit need as a definition and whether they're reasonable to meet. Many of the services that we saw come out of that were true transit needs are actually have been met beyond 24-25. So we are meeting the needs. I'll be coming back to you in June with additional information. The Social Services Transportation Advisory Council for this agency met on April 8th and discussed any needs. They actually are in concurrence right now with the staff recommendation, which I'll go into in a little bit. There was a public notice of today's public hearing for the for any members to come forward if they wanted to. And the draft 26-27 transit needs assessment is available until May 18th. For comments. So the preliminary assessment of unmet needs is that as of now, staff does not recommend adding any new transit for the 26-27 operating year. We've got in, I believe, March, RABA response, which is formally, it's known as complementary paratransit. That's its formal name. It's going now by the term RABA response. It interconnected with Shasta Connect so that we've got some of our rural riders and some of our complementary paratransit riders on the same vehicles. So we're looking at this as a way to make a more efficient transit system. We've got lifeline transit passes for individuals living in poverty. We have students, veterans, and RABA employees that can ride for free. And then we have discounted rides for individuals that are over 65, people with disabilities, and people that can present a Medicare card. So the wrap up today is we have these recommendations. 2 of them we have already gone through. The second 2 are to provide direction to staff regarding any unmet transit needs that either the board or the public feels that we have. Direct staff to prepare responses to any comments provided during this public hearing we had today, or any additional comments received by May 18th. That is the staff that wraps up staff recommendations. The SSTAC already provided us our letter. We're kind of in a weird situation. Sometimes their meeting is after our meeting. But they have already provided their recommendation that says they're in concurrence with staff for no additional transit service in 26-27. And then we'll be coming back with the final annual transit needs assessment and a resolution that has a draft of this board's findings. And if you're in agreement with that, then we will have that resolution approved. And that will be in line with the Transportation Development Act budget. With that, that concludes my presentation.
Any questions? Or
So Jen, you were saying that our fare box ratio has improved because of demand response somehow?
So basically we've actually got a new contractor. So our fare box ratio has not improved. That top line of 43.54, that is not an improvement. I'm ignoring fare box somewhat for you guys because Greg knows because he's been here for a while, but we can now include federal funds as part of fare box. So federal means we're always going to be meeting fare box recovery. Like there's this 18%, 15%, 20%, it doesn't matter. We're meeting it because we're allowed to use it, include federal funds in that. So we're meeting it. But if you look at comparisons between 23-24 and 24-25, our fare box actually did go down.
Oh.
That's in fixed route service. But what I'm showing you is more a comparison that what I've got the bottom circle there that shows that in demand response, we're actually doing better. And we've got, since this is again, this analysis ended June 30th, 2025. And since then, we've already done to improve efficiencies. So we think we're on the right track with where Rabbit is heading.
Yeah, so demand response is making it a lot cheaper rather than running a fixed route around.
It's not that it's not that it's cheaper, it might be meeting their needs, right? So when we talk about the cost of transit service, running a van versus running a bus there's not that big a difference. It's the cost of the driver that costs the most money, but we're serving the needs of the people here. And I do want to explain that in the coming years, demand response is going to become more because it actually includes 3 service, not this year, but it now includes 3 services. We've got Rabbit Runabout in there that it's when Rabbit cut some of its fixed route services last year, Rabbit Runabout stepped up or became new, and now Rabbit Runabout can go out into those areas of the urban area, City of Redding, Shasta Lake, Anderson, our urbanized area, and can go pick those people up and take them where they need to be. It is, and that's during all hours, weekends, Sundays. We've got Rabbit Runabout for the general population. Then there's complementary paratransit. We've always had that. That is within a quarter mile of any fixed route service. So complementary paratransit is for those with an ADA determination that they are allowed this bus that can go and pick them up. They can schedule a ride. That is a determination for them. They have to go through a process to get that. And then it'll also include the Shasta Connect. This does not include Shasta Connect, but in future years, you'll see that Shasta Connect is in there too. So 3 services are being combined into what today we call the management. So we think we're going to hopefully get even better numbers.
Sure, if I could, real quick, is there, be gentle with my, do you think we'll ever get to a place where we'll only be a year out? I can understand being, using last year's just because of audit and all the process, but we're going
actually
2-year-old information, which I've asked about in the past. I'm not trying to count this on, but is there a way that we could use?
I actually thought about this while going through this because, as you guys know, when John Ando was here, he was pretty rapid in the way that he got things done and the way that he changed the system. Like if he saw things not working, and I'm hoping that, we'll be continuing that with Rabbit, like if we're having on-time performance issues, addressing those on-time performance issues, if we're having other things, like going quickly to address them. I think that we talk about audited numbers. And audited numbers oftentimes I think are more important financially than they are with what we're doing. So I have to use audited numbers when it comes to fare box costs, things like that. But we could definitely provide numbers, I think, sooner. And you can actually get those from the Redding Area Bus Authority now. And I have them in a slide in case this question came up.
Just more recent info, so we could be a little, I don't know, it just makes sense to me that we would be making decisions based on more current information than.
Yeah, I think on that, without some possible changes to the TD itself because of the audit requirement of audited numbers and when the fiscal year is in and how long it takes to get the audit reports. One of our constraints, if you will, of like, we have to see when those get out. But yeah, I agree that, yeah, maybe there's ways that we can also incorporate other more current information, at least to say, hey, whether we call it draft, it's a snapshot, because it's at least actual information from RABA, even though it may not be audited, we still know what generally that information is. We just have to be careful about when we make certain determinations based on term that we're doing the right comparison. So I don't think there's anything wrong with, we can look at that of how we can incorporate the more current numbers while not getting ourselves in trouble that when we make determinations, we use the proper comparisons.
And we're pushed up against the July fiscal.
Right, because if you think about this, like 25, we're still in 25.6, right?
Yeah,
So like I can't use 25.26 because it's on.
got it. Yeah, that's the whole, thank you.
So there's no direction, so there's no motion needed.
Yes, there are 4 staff recommendations there.
All right. So,
Sorry to answer.
no, you're good. Want to make a motion?
Make a motion that, recommendations items 1 through 4, and that there are no new unmet needs.
I'll second.
All right. Amy, motion's made by Ms. Resner, seconded by Supervisor Kellstrom. Any other board discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 6-0. Moving on to 11.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Again, just like that. Get the screen. Okay, I am here to present item 12 or item 11, adopt fiscal 26-27 overall work program. Let's respond to my tabs here. There we go. Okay, so just as a reminder, OWP, what is it? Its primary purpose is an application for federal consolidated planning grant funds, CPG funds, and it serves as a contract for state planning grant funds. It also has secondary purposes such as an agency work plan, a tracking tool for the board of directors, and a monitoring tool for local, state, and federal partners, as well as the public. What's in it? It has 2 primary sections, which I have divided into 2 primary documents this year. You have the introduction or prospectus that describes the regions, its challenges, and how we do our work. Then this is our work elements that describe what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, why we're going to do it. It has some narrative portions, and it has budgets, a list of tasks and deliverables, and schedule describing where the funds are coming from and what they are paying for. Some of these work elements are what are considered the agency's core activities and ongoing work, and others are for specific efforts within a limited time. So as a reminder, this is the 3rd out of a 3-part cycle. I came and talked to you in December about preliminary regional planning priorities, incorporated those priorities and feedback into a draft OWP, which I presented in February. And now I've got the finalized OWP that I'm asking the board to adopt. So what's new compared to the prior year? We have 2 new work elements. We have a new one, 70119. Those are using SB1 formula planning funds. And that is for an evaluation of our SCS implementation to see how that is doing. We also have a conditional work element in there, conditional upon a anticipated grant award to start the Shasta Next Gen Railroad Crossing plan. The estimated budget for 26-27 is just a little shy of 4.6 million. This represents an increase of almost 90,000. And this is due to various factors, including completion of a discretionary planning grant effort this year, an anticipated grant award for the Next Gen Railroad Crossing Plan, a COLA increase of 2% that was approved by the Fiscal Policy Committee, and anticipated estimated revenues and expenditures. So we have a recommendation here. 4-part recommendation. Asking the board to approve the 26-27 OWP pursuant to the resolution attached to your staff report. Authorize the executive director to sign the OWP agreement and certifications and assurances. And authorize the executive director to make administrative edits to the OWP to correct errors and address further comments from our partners, as well as to sign the 26-27 ICAP submission certificate. Any questions?
So I make a motion that we accept it.
Second.
4. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Amy, that motion was made by myself, seconded by Supervisor Kellstrom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 6-0. Moving on to 12.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board, partner agency staff, and any members of the public that have joined. Every 2 years since 2013, the California Transportation Commission, CTC, has announced a call for projects for their active transportation program, the ATP, the largest source of active transportation funding in the state. Last cycle 7, only made $168 million available for the entire state, and 4 projects were submitted from the Shasta region. While none were funded, they all scored well, and a couple scored very well. Last month, the CTC announced the Cycle 8 call for projects to compete for $619 million, and this time only 2 projects will be submitted to the ATP from the Shasta region, and both are resubmittals from Cycle 7, which scored very well. One is the City of Shasta Lake's Link Shasta project, and the other is the City of Reading's Victor Avenue North project. The City of Reading does not have staff capacity at present to resubmit the Hilltop Improvement Project, and Shasta County staff opted not to work with the Pitt River Tribe on resubmitting an application for the town of Bernie for the same reason. In Cycle 8, as was the CERTA Board of Directors practice in previous ATP cycles, CERTA and local agency staff are asking for a recommitment from the board to cover half the necessary local agency funding match to secure the maximum 5 ATP points associated with match. Reading's project cost estimate is $18.4 million, translating into a match of $1.8 million from the city and $1.8 million from CERTA. Link Shasta's project cost estimate is $42.2 million, and the city is leveraging other applicable discretionary grants, so no additional match should be required in this case. It's a unique strategy that CERTA, the city, and CTC staff discussed and agreed to through verbal contract and served the city well, as Link Shasta received a very high score in Cycle 7. CERTA's match may come from the Regional Non-Motorized Program and the Regional Improvement Program. And CERTA staff is recommending that the CERTA Board of Directors reconfirm CERTA's match commitments. And that is all. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions if you have it.
Does have any questions? Yes, Mr.
Let's
Watts.
make a statement that the active transportation loop for Shasta Lake makes a lot of sense. It's a sidewalk, it's off the side, it's not doing any of the cones in the middle of the street, moving any parking anywhere that doesn't make sense, like we got forced on us on Shasta Dam Boulevard. So I think this is a good plan and a good submittal. And I looked at the way they were doing this, and I don't see any unforeseen problems coming forward.
Sean, did Tanessa have any comments on this during our fiscal policy meeting? I remember. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. Might have been on 10. So
I think there were just clarifications about like where the projects were at, because in the past, Reading had done a couple of projects, and that was time. And talking to the staff from Reading, they're being strategic with their workload about the needs that they have, or the projects that they've been needing to work on. So I know City of Reading has been strategic, and they're going to focus on this project first, and they have another one. And both attention to the Park Marina have been in discussion for future cycles.
I remember Tanessa was on it, so I just can't remember if there was anything that she brought up that she's like, all right, I think it's great. Anybody want to make a motion on that? All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Gallagher, seconded by Ms. Resner. Any other discussion? So that's the recommendation of 1 and 2. All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Amy? Thank you. Moving on to 13. So appointing SRTA board members to serve on a GoShasta regional. Go ahead.
Good morning. Today, staff is recommending the formation of a steering committee to help guide the update to the GoShasta Regional Active Transportation Plan. The GoShasta plan is the region's blueprint for walking, rolling, and biking projects and positions partners and local agencies to compete for state and federal funding to help build those projects. The update to the 2018 plan will refresh project lists, incorporate updated data, integrate recent federal and state guidance, and reflect current priorities of the traveling public, partners, and local jurisdictions. As part of this effort, we're proposing a 3-member steering committee made up of SRTA board members. We used a similar approach in the 2018 GoShasta plan. The committee met twice and comprised of 3 SRTA board members who provided input at key points in the process. For example, they weighed in on project prioritization criteria and vision and goal statements of the plan. The idea is to have a small group available to provide input at major decision points, review relevant key materials, and make sure the plan reflects a range of perspectives across the region. Since the GoShasta plan will eventually go to member agencies for local adoption and be used to pursue funding, having some board level input along the way help ensures it aligns with local priorities. The meetings shouldn't be a substantial lift. The 2 meetings the 2018 committee had lasted no more than an hour each. We could hold anywhere from 2 to 4 meetings, depending on board members' availability and desired duration of meetings. And just to be clear, the committee is advisory only and not subject to the Brown Act. The full board will still receive updates in addition to reviewing and approving the final plan. With that, I'll open it up to discussion or any questions.
Yeah, Sean, I already asked you about this, but it's all advisory. So realistically, if we all get the emails, we can all respond to it, give our just individual input, not as a board, but individually what we think. So here's the deal. If anybody wants to volunteer for it,
Well, I think, I'll go with legal counsel, but I think
it's not a Brown Act.
if board members provided individual input, you can do that as long as you're not messaging the entire board.
Yeah, exactly.
With that, but in terms of the advisory committee, if you do that, that would be advisory itself. That group it's not subject to Brown Act. If you did a steering committee, that's advisory in that perspective. Everything else you provide input.
Yeah, so let's just bring it back to board discussion then. Do you guys want to create an advisory committee? Is there a motion to do that, and who would like to be on it? I think advisory committees are, it has no teeth. It's going to come back to the board anyway, but it's up to you guys. Discussion.
I'm good.
Mr. Watkins?
I don't know, this is the 2% of the gas tax money that comes.
So this is the GoShasta plan, right? So it's our regional plan we have for active transportation projects across the board. So strategically, each of the jurisdictions are looking to say, what are their future needs? What projects do they want to focus on? It's a combination of a variety of funds, depending on the project and where the projects are located. So it could be federal funds, it could be state funds, it could also use a portion of the 2% that we set aside for the regional non-motorized program. But it's more of a full strategy of what other improvements do the jurisdictions want to make, and then how do we coordinate with them in terms of those projects that are going to connect across different boundaries with the different jurisdictions, for those what we call those trunk line improvements. So it's more of that full strategy for funding across the board. But yes, the chair is correct. At different stages throughout the plan, but also come back to the board for input. So the goal here was it was asked for last time. So we wanted to bring this to you to see if you're still interested. If not, that's great. If you are, that's great as well. Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
I'll also add that this plan is being funded through a Caltrans Sustainable Communities competitive grant that we applied for. So.
I don't want there to be Brown Act issues. Obviously, any of us can weigh in via email. I would be more than willing to sit and follow staff recommendations. However, I could only do that for about 6 more months. So
Right. And that is something we've taken into consideration. And so if that were to take place, any changes of board members, we would have to bring it back and then.
I'm not aware of any Brown Act.
There isn't. I know it's already been stated that it's not a Brown
It's a-
Act thing. It's advisory. So I don't know why members keep saying that, but it's not a Brown Act thing. So you said it, he said it.
So you would like to also sit on the board?
No, what I'm saying is I think it's toothless and worthless and it doesn't have, I mean, you guys are going to bring it back to us. We're going to vote on it.
Yep.
So, I mean, it was very clearly stated, it's not a Brown Act thing. It's an advisory committee only, holds no water, no teeth. We can just be there to advise.
Right.
But we can do that as individual board members through an email, which you're going to already send us.
Certainly.
You were very clear.
Yeah.
Great presentation. All right. I make a motion that we take no action and let you guys do your job.
I'll second.
All right. You like that? He's smiling. He likes that. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. Moving on. Great job, sir. Going to 14. Receive a legislative update and consider taking positions on specific legislation.
Thank you, Chair and Board. The presentation gets up there. So the legislation, of course, as you all know, it's an ongoing process. There's a lot of changes that can happen between meetings, the way things play out. So right now, what we have before you are 3 different items this morning. My goal here is to go through them in order. I'd say probably easiest discussion to most interesting discussion throughout in terms of that. But the first one, next slide, please.
The bathroom.
ACR 162, please.
I just missed the overhead projectors, man, from like junior high.
Right, there we go. Okay, the Assembly Concurrent Resolution 162 by Assembly Member Gallagher is presented for designating a portion of State Route 299 in Duke County as the Congressman Douglas Muffle Memorial Highway. It includes also a requirement for Caltrans to determine a cost for signage to be able to receive donations for the full project and then to install the signage when the project is fully funded. As you all know, Congressman Malfa has served in North State for a significant amount of time, including the Shasta County area, starting in 2002 and both as state assembly member and state senator before serving as our congressman for the congressional district until 2026. He was a strong advocate for North State supporting many transportation efforts, including most recently securing funding, federal funding for the Fixed Fat Cascade Gateway project. So that item is before you for a support letter, which has been drafted for signing by chair. So that's the first item that we have. Next slide, please. The Sustainable Aviation Fuel Tax Credit. This one's a little different because it's not actually a bill. This is essentially something that was introduced in the governor's budget proposal for next fiscal year. So it doesn't follow the typical committees and review process that we're usually tracking. But it has become an item that regional agencies, cities and counties, and talking with your public works directors and staff about do have some concerns. I'll summarize it briefly of what we understand as the fuel tax credit is written today, is that it would provide $1 to $2 of credit, of a tax credit per gallon of sustainable aviation fuel produced for use in California. It applies to certain production period, including the first time that any type of a claim can be made. It also must meet certain carbon intensity requirements, which is listed as to be determined by CARB. That was how they identify sustainable aviation. And producers, general fuel producers can claim this also if they have diesel excise tax liability here in the state. But it does have some impacts because as it's currently proposed, in order to fund the tax credit, is pulling from streets and roads, in specifically 3 main programs. One, your local streets and roads that you rely on for maintenance improvement of facilities, and that tune of $49 million a year is estimated initially. Also, Caltrans State Highway Operations and Protection Program, which is used for maintenance of our highway system. That would also see a $70 million per year annual reduction. Caltrans recently had to go through a huge adjustment to their SHOP program due to other reductions. And so that is just be on top of what they've already had to make adjustments for, as well as then their Trade Corridor Enhancement Program under SB1, which is a freight corridor funding at the tune of $46 million. in the staff report, I mentioned specifically, and as well as the copy of the opposed letter presented to you for recommendation, is the Independent Legislative Analyst Office looked at this and said, it may not be that this, as proposed, one is of benefit because it would be taking money from road needs for aviation. Two, it is a very, what we consider expensive approach for trying to create, for now, a sustainable aviation fuel in some degrees as the tax credit is proposed. Also, it may not be in line with prior efforts where California voters had voted to keep transportation road dollars for transportation road types of projects. So there is a question about whether or not, as proposed, that even stays consistent with things that we did for a constitutional amendment as voters here in California. So with that, I'm recommending an opposed position and a letter written for you.
Mr. Watkins.
Sean, I totally agree with your opposed because it does take money out of our repaving and our cities helping our streets. I think there's a bigger issue though. Tomorrow, Valero refinery shuts down in Benicia. And last December 31st, Phillips 66 shut down in LA. There is not enough refinery capability in California to produce both diesel and aviation fuel. So anything like this that's saying we're going to give tax credit to make green aviation fuels is just nuts. So I think you could even add to that there's not enough aviation fuel to keep the planes in California flying. So
this is going back to the fiscal policy meeting. So you want to add that language to the letter?
I don't know. We could add a point like that it's kind of ridiculous to think about trying to make green aviation fuel when you can't even make enough aviation fuel to supply the planes that fly into California that need to fly out to get to the next destination.
Can we just add that the governor's nuts?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. This is his mandate. Did I hear you correct? This didn't go through legislation. This was a budget item.
So this is proposed in the January budget, the initial budget that was introduced. One appropriations and budget committee, I think on the Senate, if I remember correctly, one of the two, had received input. And that's where like the LAO reiterated their own report. Some other proponents, including from the Department of Finance, tried to defend it as it was presented and everything else. The LAO, of course, was like, well, there's a number of issues. The LAO also, from the meeting, identified in the report that only a limited number, even nationally, of producers providing sustainable aviation fuel currently from that meeting in the way that is done. So I don't know if it's really the aviation fuel side. I mean, granted, for California, we have some issues because of losing refineries, the fact that then as a state, we'd have to import more fuel just in general. But I don't know, I can't speak to whether or not it's really going to create a huge reduction on the aviation fuel side. It's not an area I'm familiar with, other than from a national perspective around it. So
Greg, it's up to you. Do you want to add it or no? Leave it alone.
I'll leave it alone,
Okay.
but I think it's an issue that everybody ought to be aware of.
Yeah.
And when they go at is that's a great point of something we'll keep an eye out, because one of the things, besides whatever letters you approve today and that the chair signs, we will be keeping an eye on committees as well. So these notes we will take down, and if there's an opportunity to also comment or provide additional letters, I will incorporate that type of additional comments.
I'll make a motion to send the letter off.
I'll second. All right. So Corky is fine. Amy, Supervisor Kellstrom made the motion to send these letters. Supervisor Harmon seconded it.
Did you already go over?
That was only the first letter, not the second.
Oh, didn't we?
You said opposed, so are you wanting to make motion for 1 and 2?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to Cabalden and then.
We want to go through them all, or we?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll go through all.
Or did everybody look at them in their packets? Prepare already.
I think a lot of it, so I'm gonna go briefly through the Cabalden one.
All right.
Specifically, just so I can point out a couple of things, because we discussed this at length in fiscal and policy, which is why the item before you is presenting to just essentially direct myself and board member Halcog and other partners to continue to provide comments and wait until probably June before we actually provide a comment letter. Because also I can tell you right now, I just had an invite for Senator Cabalden and his staff to participate in another state discussion on this bill May 7th. So we already have an opportunity to provide input. But move on to the next slide, please. Next one. I wanted to be able to highlight some of the things of how these different elements within Senator Caballo's bill will impact us, both either from positive or negative. So real quick on the first one, the SCS update process moving to 4 years to 8. It's to reduce our workload, and also it will help align those efforts with the regional housing need allocation cycle, which your planning departments do as part of the housing element updates. In terms of the mid-cycle SCS progress report, honestly, not really a whole lot of impact, I think, there. We already do that as part of our RTB process. We did that on our own because of the need to be able to inform, and the board wanted to know progress. So we might have some additional elements to include, no real impact there. CEQA. Currently, California is the only state that requires the long-range transportation plan that's federally required and that the state tags onto for state needs to go through environmental review. The Senator Cabal and the committees agreed that, you know what, that plan shouldn't be subject to it anymore and be exempt. The benefit I see right now is I'm estimating between 250 to 300,000 in reduced costs for developing the regional transportation plan each cycle related to that. Just because of our current ERR is going to be about 200,000 plus staff time, plus anything else we have to do after we adopt the regional transportation to go discuss the part. So that's what I'm estimating. It can also reduce schedule risk because CEQA is very confined to certain schedules and things we have to do. Also, the process for the review has been recommended to change to like either CARBs as approved or conditionally or not. And it reiterates and mandates the 60-day review process, and essentially now would require by default, if the state agency doesn't make a decision, it's automatically approved. That's not in the current bill. So that is a huge benefit to us to not having to get things drawn out. Many times the review is taking 2 years, which is unacceptable for a review process when we're supposed to update a plan every 4 years. Next slide, please. The greenhouse gas reduction target would change from being not just on passenger light duty vehicles, but to all vehicles. And there are some other elements related to how CARB would have to update the target because of that. The benefits that I see there is that it will change the target itself to be more comprehensive instead of forcing us to look at all strategies just on passenger vehicles. It's all modes of transportation when we look at that. And we could also take credit for various efforts that are conducted regionally across here in this county. And also require transparency for CARB's target setting methodology. Next slide.
So does that greenhouse gas reduction for vehicles, does that force the California summer blend for gasoline? Is that associated with that?
No, that was done well before Senate Bill 375 was passed. The summer blends existed for quite a time.
But are you going to be talking to the senator about fuel issues and strategies in the future?
Those are probably things that can be incorporated and discussed as part of methodologies and how that's factored. So yes, it is within the factor, but the requirement for a fuel blend for summer was well before this bill even passed. It was been for much longer.
Well, if you have an opportunity, you ought to bring that up, that there's not enough gas in California coming up this year to have the summer blend.
Right.
And there's no refinery that makes it. And the refinery that's making it is India, and is shipping it here, and India can't get any crude right now to make the California summer blend. So if they don't change that, California is going to be running out of gasoline this summer.
We'll make a note to include that as first discussions.
Okay.
Next slide. No, leave it right there.
Run out.
Yeah, exactly. Reader for items of card oversight. So this gets to some items that we as regional agencies have been discussing for a while with input from our boards. 3 main things is one, there'll be creation of a regional targets advisory committee to oversee CARB and how they develop their data, their assumptions, their methodologies, how they evaluate state and local and regional policies and programs. They have to then actually required to publish all their data. We've had issues with that as MPO trying to understand the assumptions that they build into it because it's not always been provided clear, but there's a lot of documents to go through, so they have to post it. It also would require CARB to have public workshops and or hearings related to these targets, including within regions. And so it provides a lot more accountability. It requires CARB to have to be accountable to the public as well as the jurisdictions, and a little bit more so of like having a say. And also I see it as a way, it makes CARB actually have to come see the communities that they're impacting with all their rules. Whether or not how they will take that out, no, but it does at least give us an opportunity to comment and makes them come here instead of us having to go there and for the process. So those are things that I think are easy to support. Next slide, please. Some things that seek future change potentially is the bill does currently add a 2045 greenhouse gas reduction target year. Honestly, it's no surprise that that would be included. We know that that was probably going to be something to come out of it. We do have some questions about, what it requires for technical analysis on that side. There's also something that we want to seek for further change on is that the whole methodology and guidelines are being kept separate. Most of our work is all according to the California Transportation Commission. We have, as NPOs, everyone would say, look, CTC should be tasked with all of those requirements. So we have everything in one document, not having to go multiple agencies for process. And also, essentially, we're tired of CARB being judge, jury, and execution of the whole process. And so by pulling some of this out and aligning it, it allows then the CTC to have a bit of a say, and that's related to it. And so we will see how that plays out. I will note Senator Cabaldon initially had it, so a lot of these other elements went to the CTC. The Senate Environmental Committee said no and rejected it. They wanted to stay CARB. Cabaldon capitulated and said, I'll remove the language for now, but I'm coming back to you with additional revised language. He goes, and I think the state needs to do something about CARB in this arena. So we'll see what he's going to propose, possibly as part of the assembly side when it goes through the assembly committees.
What do you think he's proposing to do about CARB?
Well, he wants to have a lot more oversight. I mean, you're not going to see a proposal for elimination of CARB. You're not going to see that. But I think he wants to rein them in terms of some of the efforts that they do and actually have it where there's better coordination with the process, with especially other state agencies. And so we'll see what that is. Like I said, there's a meeting May 7th, so I'll know you about what they're thinking on this side. So with that, there's a couple of items I think that are further review that I presented before you as well, that we have some more questions on. And I think we'll be able to report back in June, and probably we'll have a letter for you then on a position. So, but for now, I'm asking for just a support if amended, and just action for me to work on this more.
That's changed. And Supervisor Caltrans, there's been no asks for amendments to your motion, so I think your motion still stands. Correct, Mr. Watkins? Perfect. All right, Amy, just to recap, that was a motion by Supervisor Caltrans to accept
Staff recommendation,
and then make sure, Sean, that you talked to Tanessa that that was okay. Yep. And then Supervisor Harmon seconded that. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's 6-0. Moving on to 15.
Can I back up and just ask? Wait, we're going to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Back on the airline fuel mandate. What? This is kind of maybe a little bit on the ignorant side, but the trucks, when they come into California, they don't fuel in California. They come in with a load of fuel. They do their business and they're back out of here. They don't buy in California because the fuel's terrible. And it costs more money. So is this possibly the same with the airlines? I mean, are we just running business off because they're not going to fuel here?
That's not agendized. We've already moved on. So Sean, will you follow up?
That's probably several a conversation after.
And if you run out of fuel in a truck, it's bad. If you run out of fuel in an airplane, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. That's why I was asking I don't know if you fuel up in Denver, do you got to refuel in LA? I don't know.
Yes.
If you don't refuel when you get back to Denver,
Fill up there.
so you'll make sure you don't.
All right. So we're going to go to 15 suggestions from board members for future topics. One thing I'll say, just as we have these packets, and I'll tell you, if we could continue to condense some of the presentation stuff. I brought this up in the past, but you guys do a phenomenal job, Sean, you and your whole team of putting stuff together. I think we could cut down like on that legislative. And again, it's a little different because I spent time in the fiscal policy too, but you guys line it all out. So it's very redundant. So if everybody here just can agree to do their homework, we can cut some of these presentations down by half or more and get the tens or if not hundreds of thousands of dollars back to work instead of sitting in this room. So that's one thing. Anybody else have anything that you want a future topic on? I'm going to bring up something in a future meeting here, working with City of Reading and a couple different agencies, county, Caltrans, and then individuals about redesigning downtown and a Buenaventura Bridge. So that's going to be coming back here at some point soon. So any other questions? Comments?
By the way,
What's that?
to imply that we're not doing our homework.
Oh, no, I did.
No, you did. Don't interrupt. I'm telling you that we do our homework. So to imply that we don't, it's a little crass.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did. You said if you would all do your homework, we could cut it down.
No, I just said if we all do our homework, we can cut it down.
We all do it.
Well, perfect. Then we're good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're
Being done.
I'm sorry you're sensitive. All right. With that, we are adjourned. All right.